Welcome to another edition of Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast. I'm Captain Rick Riles. Hey, listen, this is where we take a trip all the way around the state. We're even going to take a fantasy trip out to Costa Rica and get the fishing report. You want to know what's happening where? We've got the up-to-the-minute news for you. Where's the bait? Where are the fish biting? What are the ocean conditions? We can tell you about that anywhere in the great state of Florida by just having a seat and a listen. And we sure hope you enjoy our podcast tonight. If you do, we'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe. As always, this and all of our Action Spotter podcasts are brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Tournament Master Chum, the best chum on earth. By Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream vacation. And by Young Boats. You want the best in flat spay and offshore hybrid boats? You need to check out youngboats.com. Let's make our first stop in Paradise, my favorite billfish destination out of everywhere I've ever been, and check in with our buddy from Nosara Paradise Fishing, Craig Sutton. How we doing, Craig?
I'm good, Captain Ricky. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing outstanding, buddy. I tell you what, I'm glad to be talking to you. You are one day closer to opening your resort back up and being flooded with people wanting to catch a marlin.
Yeah, we are. We've already done a bunch of bookings. I had a bunch of activity over the weekend on Sunday, and then this morning we had 3 nice little packages for late July and August. So people are ready to get out, man. They're ready to get going down there.
I tell you what, I think everybody's got a lot of pent-up frustration. They want to go take it out on a big fish somewhere, and there's no better place than yours. Now, when you open back up, let's say it's July 1st, you open back up, what will be your target species then?
Well, the yellowfin or, ever present, but the bigger ones will be there. And then, of course, the big mahi, sails, and marlin.
Mm-hmm.
Do the caber and roosters, too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Is this a good time for marlin? Is there a better time as we get further into the summertime? I guess that's everybody's dream fish.
Late May, June, July, and August is without a doubt our biggest marlin months.
Okay.
No question.
You catch blues, blacks, and stripes there. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Wow. I've only done one of those 3, so I need to get the other 2 checked off, Craig. Can you hook me up?
You better believe it, Ricky. Come on down this August.
Great. How can people get a hold of you, Craig, if they want to come to Nosara Paradise Fishing?
They can call me at 904-591-2161.
Or visit you at fishingnosara.com, right?
That's right. That's right. And I tell you what, we're buffed up and detailed up, man. That's all we've been doing the last 2 months is doing maintenance and painting and building and fixing. And, our stuff looks good. Looks really, really good.
Well, let me tell you something else, Craig Sutton. Back when we were teenagers and I was mating on a charter boat, I believe my record was 39, might have been 49 straight days in a row that I ran. And I might not have had the enthusiasm on day 49 that I did on day 1. I can promise you, you get down there in August this year, you're going to have some enthusiastic crews, aren't you?
Boy, you ain't kidding. You ain't kidding. And those guys are hardcore down there. William fished, I want to say it was 43 days straight a couple years ago. And I know he's done a lot of months where he's running 28, 29 trips in a month. That's pretty standard for him. But, yeah, I guarantee you those guys are fired up to get back out and win a lot.
I don't doubt it a bit. I hope I'm with him. Thank you, Craig. We always appreciate it. We'll talk with you next week if that's okay.
Thank you, Ricky. Sounds good, buddy.
You got it. Now we're going to start in Florida. Let's check up in the northeast corner where I understand there's some guy in the neighborhood that's building this giant wooden ship or something. David, is that you building that thing?
No, that's not me, but I tell you what, we've gotten enough rain to last us quite a while. We got over 5 inches of rain yesterday. Even with that being said, I did check the salinity today, and I was really surprised to see it as good as it was. I was showing 28 parts per thousand, which, was still good and salty for inshore water. That's not bad at all. I was expecting to see some real muddy water today. Expecting to see the salinity levels way down low, but that's not the case. Even with all this rain coming out of that drought, our salinity levels were really up there. Even with all this fresh water, it's still just about normal now.
God, David, how was your water clarity? Wasn't it awfully muddy?
Well, that's what I was expecting today, but actually I fished the high water today, which wasn't bad. Now, I can't say that for the outgoing because I didn't fish it today, but I would almost bet that outgoing tide probably got pretty muddy. But the incoming was a decent bite today. It was pretty good. The fish bit really good on that high tide. Up against the grass, we're getting some really nice reds, feeding on finger mullet right up close to the grass. The only thing is you've got to cover lots of water. You get a few fish out of one spot, and that's about as good as you're going to do. You got to move on to a new batch of fish. Trout fishing, we've had 2 this week, 2 really nice trout in the 24, 25-inch range. Had one today that went over 18. We're definitely seeing a decent flounder bite. And what I mean by decent, we've been getting 3 and 4 a day, and quite a few of them are what we consider a take-home flounder in my boat, which is anything over 15 inches.
David, it's funny you mentioned that. The FWC, of course, you and I have talked about this, but they are proposing some major changes to the flounder regulations. They want to go from 10 fish per person to 5. They want to go from 12 inches up to 14, and they want to close November. How do you stand on those 3 issues?
I'm okay with the 10 to 5 limit. I think 5's a good number. And I think you're going to find most of your recreational guys will agree to a 5 limit. I would like to see, instead of 14 inches, even go all the way up to 15 inches. The next 14-inch fish, I'm going to photograph it so people get a good look at what a 14-inch fish looks like. The one big complaint I'm hearing from a lot of the local captains and a lot of the guides, they're not too happy with the November closure. A lot of guys are having problems with that. I'm not having a problem with that. But on the commercial scene, I'm having some issues. Right now, there is no bag limit for commercial harvest of fish. The only bag limit there is what they call a 50-pound incidental catch, which come from shrimp boats, which, we talked about, Rick. They're going to catch them no matter what. I don't understand the limit there, the 50-pound incidental. But what they want to do is a 150 fish limit for the commercial bag limit, which, looking at other states, that seems really high to me, Rick. And I didn't hear any captains in the meeting that we had with the biologists a couple of weeks ago that thought that was a good number. And when we questioned them about where did they come up with that number, 150, they did not have an answer for us. So I sort of have a problem with that. I want to know, where does that number come from, 150? I talked to some of the guys that work for FWC, and they're telling me right now they're not catching 150 fish a day. And so why would they come up with that number? Where did that number come from? Rick, I'm afraid that what's going to happen, like the same what happened with the trout, is the recreational guys are going to make all the concessions, and the commercial guys are going to get everything they want. That really disappoints me. I'm not looking to shut down a commercial guy. My whole family were commercial fishermen. I know how it's a tough way to make a living. 150 fish, I did the math on it and figured out what the average fish they were catching and how much it is per pound. And let me tell you, if you're bringing home 100 fish a night, you're going to make a very good living at that, selling flounder in Northeast Florida. There's one other thing that they have. They want to move the state regulations into federal water. I think what they're trying to do here, Rick, and talking with some of the guys that work with the game and fish, is that they would like to really not have 2 different regulations. In other words, one federal regulation and one state regulation, because it's really hard for them to manage that. There's just too much for them to figure out, were you in federal waters, were you in state waters? What a lot of the guys would like to see happen is that the federal waters adapt whatever the state regulations are for that particular area. I don't know if that's going to happen. It makes sense to me. God, wouldn't we love to see the states take over the snapper regulations? We'd love to see that, but that's not going to happen. Anyway, that's what's going down with the flounder. I don't know so much about the November closure, and the biologist wasn't sure that was going to be the case. She tended to think that date could change as you go around the state.
I've also heard the idea floated, David, that we did things in stages. We went to 5 fish, 14 inches, and we sat on that for 2 years. And then if it looks like our numbers are still declining, then we close a month. I can get behind that. The only drawback that I see, David, is males. And from what I understand, the southern flounder, which is our primary fish, the males only get to 12 inches. So does it upset the biologist if we're harvesting only females? And I'm not smart enough to know the answer to that, but it is something that needs to be considered.
Absolutely, Rick. And the reason that they try to get everything done at once is because of the way they do these regulations. The way they explained it to me was we only pick a species, we only do something every so many years. So in other words, when the flounder comes up for a new regulation, we're not going to see any more changes for 5 years at best before they ever bring up another issue on the flounder. So they try to get everything fixed at once. I like taking the little steps and seeing how things go, but I don't think that's going to happen, Rick.
Understood. Hey, David, thanks so much for a great report and your thoughts on flounder. Let me tell you, nobody's been fishing for flounder longer and harder than you have, and I'm certainly glad to get your insight and was really surprised by how good your catch was today with 5 inches of water dumped into the estuary yesterday. I would have thought that would have totally boogered it up.
Yeah, I would have thought that, Rick, and we'll see how tomorrow goes, and I will keep you informed. Anything I hear about this flounder regulation, I'm going to keep my ears to the pavement. I'll let you know what's going on.
Thanks so much, Captain David Voorhees from Northeast Florida. Thank you, David.
Tight lines, Rick.
Okay, let's take a quick drive down 95. We're going to pull over in the East Central region and talk to our boy Jim Ross. Jim, are you with us?
I'm with you, Rick. How are you doing today?
Oh, man, sounds to me like you are kicked back, taking it easy.
Actually, I am. I've had a couple of cancellations due to weather, and so I've just been kind of taking it easy in the afternoons because I've been working around the houses in the mornings. I've installed a new alarm system at the house and a new ring doorbell and got the water softener treatment system all tuned up. So I'm ready to get back on the water, and that's supposed to happen tomorrow morning, and I'm looking forward to it.
You know, I got to tell you, Jim, somebody said one time, life's not fair. Well, this is the exemplary example, if that makes sense, of life not being fair. We have to stay home because of the virus, so we all stay home for 6 weeks, and then the wind starts blowing and the rain starts coming.
It went straight from like March, and then we had a little bit of nice weather, and then it went straight to September.
Yep.
I'll tell you what's going on offshore. It's kind of interesting. I was actually talking with a buddy of mine who lives out on the beach. We haven't had a lot of bait, and we are starting to see a little bit of bait show up here the last 2 days. So there are some pelicans diving between Sebastian Inlet and Melbourne Beach right now. It looks like there's some Spanish mackerel and some sharks in there. Now, he hasn't seen any tarpon yet, but it's just a matter of time. When you get those other species that are following bait, it's not going to be long before you get the jacks and you get the tarpon and, of course, the king mackerel come to the beach. So we got that to look forward to. Offshore, over the weekend, we had a pretty doggone good dolphin bite. Nothing big, average fish being about 5 to 8 pounds, but quite a few of them, lots of different boats that did get out. Doing really good on the dolphin, and especially between Canaveral and Ponce Inlet up at New Smyrna. So the guys that were in about 160 to about 220 feet of water seemed to find the fish the best up in that region. Down to the south, it didn't seem like there was as many dolphin, but the guys that were down there did a little bit better on the king mackerel in closer in that 60 to 90 foot depth.
I tell you what, it seems like last weekend, you're exactly right. The weekend was a rally for dolphin just about everywhere. I was talking with Captain Robert Johnson out of St. Augustine earlier today, and he said the only one of their boats that stayed on the troll on Sunday had a surprisingly good day catching dolphin.
Yeah, I was really shocked at how good it was. Inside, I got a report from one of my buddies, John Pine. He was over in the Port St. John, South Titusville area. He was seeing schools of pompano coming down the flat. And I said, come on, John, pompano. And he's like, no, Jim, these were pompano. He goes, they weren't jacks, they were pompano. He was throwing topwater plugs, which they weren't really chasing. He was seeing quite a few schools of them. So I'm actually going to go investigate that area tomorrow, and I'll have a better report for you next week as to whether they're still there or not. Some of the other things that are going on, our trout bite is still fairly strong. both Banana and the Indian River. And the northern Indian seems to be turning on right now with bigger fish. The Banana and the Mosquito Lagoon seem to be smaller fish. And the Banana right now, it seems like they're chasing finger mullet. But if you get up to Mosquito Lagoon, they don't even want a mullet. They're around the mullet. But if you throw pigfish into the mullet pods, you'll get a bite. If you throw mullet in there, they just kind of ignore it.
Well, you know why that is.
Well, you tell me, because
Jim.
I've quit trying to figure out why fish do what they do. I just keep changing until I get something that they like, and then I stick with it.
We've known each other 30 years, Jim. Haven't I taught you that pigfish talk and mullet don't? I mean, that's gotta be it, doesn't it?
You're right about that. You're right about that. You know, in the Mosquito Lagoon, there's not much grass right now. There's actually more grass down in the Banana and over in the Indian River than there is in the Mosquito, but the pigfish are still the preferred bait right now in that area. And you can't hardly find a pigfish down in the Indian or Banana. And so I think because they're not really there, I think that's probably why the trout are still targeting those mullet as strong as they are.
But I'm going to tell you the truth now that my dock, the end of my dock's in about 10 feet of water. And I don't know what the trigger is, but I can walk out there at night some nights, and I promise you I hear 100 pigfish. They will be around every piling. I would have to assume they're mating. I don't know, but the spawn must be on.
If you can hear them, they probably are.
Oh, my gosh. You couldn't miss it, Jim. It's crazy to hear it. The dock really doesn't vibrate, but it almost feels like that. It's just crazy how loud they are. Yeah, so apparently the trout don't like listening to them, so they shut them up, I guess.
It's like ringing a dinner bell.
That's exactly
they just come
right.
Running.
Hey, buddy, as always, we appreciate it so much. I hope the weather lays down for you. We'll look forward to talking to you next week.
I'm looking forward to it too, Rick.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Take care.
Let's hope it's a little better down south where we're going to pull over next in Stuart and check with our buddy John Earhart from the Chaos and Mayhem Charters. John, are you with us?
Yes, sir. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you, Cap. Tell me what's going on offshore, Stuart.
We fished offshore today. I got to tell you, it was beautiful out there. We had about a 2-foot chop. You know, the wind kind of laid down. It was just absolutely gorgeous today. So I'd say tomorrow we're looking at 1 to 2 foot seas. Fishing was a little slow for us, but there's plenty of fish to be caught. We caught 3 out of 5 blackfin tuna, caught a handful of small mahis, and that was in about 270 feet. There's quite a few weed lines out there right now, anywhere from about 450 into about 120 foot of water. It seems like we got a lot of sailfish activity, and that's going to be more like 160, 150 feet of water into about 80 feet of water right now. That 80 to 150 feet just seems like that's where most of these guys are live baiting and catching their sailfish this week. I did see a handful of free jumpers in 120 feet as I was coming in today out of the deeper water. Now, the water's a little dirty inshore, but that's where you're going to want to fish if you want to catch the sailfish, using live greenies, blue runners, goggle eyes if you can get your hands on them.
How deep were your mahi?
The mahi bites I got today were in 270 out to 440, just kind of sporadic. You know, it was mostly smaller little peanut dolphins. Most of them were like 19 and 7/8 inches long. So we had a lot of throwbacks.
That's not good. Yep. That's not good. What's going on inshore?
The inshore fishing, it's been a little tough the past couple of days. We got a lot of freshwater runoff from all this rain we've got here in Stuart over the past few days. I definitely stick to fishing closer to the St. Lucie Inlet. A lot of bigger snook are being caught. You're going to have to fish your baits down lower in the water column, closer to the bottom, just because there's not a lot of water clarity, and the salinity change is going to keep those fish pinned to the bottom. But there are a lot of bigger snook to be caught this week. I see a lot of guys catching 40-inch fish pretty consistently. So you're definitely going to want to beef up your tackle, use heavier leaders, get them to the boat, get a picture quickly, and get them back in the water, because these are our breeder fish, and they're going to be producing a lot of snook for a future fishery.
You know, John, you said something very important there, and I know how much guys love light tackle and fly rods and all that, and I do too. I love it. But we've got to take the health of the fish into consideration. You don't want a big spawning female getting overexerted and just becoming shark bait as she slowly swims off.
Yeah, and I'm all about guys light tackle fishing, but we want to be smart about this. If we're going to go out to the inlet, we know there's breeding fish out there. You got heavy currents, you got sharks that are going to eat them. using that lighter tackle, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Now, if you're going way upriver, you're fishing shallow water, yeah, definitely take advantage of using a lighter tackle and enjoy the fight some more. But usually when you're fishing around the inlet this time of year, we're picture fishing for those larger fish. So let's do it quickly and efficiently, and get them back in the water so they can live for future generations to catch.
Well said, my friend. Please tell me we can check in with you next week and find out what's going on in Stuart, Florida, on the chaos and the mayhem.
Yes, sir. I'll talk to you guys next week.
All right, talk to you next week. Thank you, John.
See you, Rick.
Now we're going to pull on down to the lifeblood of Florida, Miami, where it all happens on South Beach. And we got the mayor of South Beach on the phone with us right now, Alan Sherman. Alan, there's a partying going on down there.
Well, there's some stuff going on. I don't know if it's partying, but there's definitely some stuff going on, and it happened throughout the weekend. It was kind of breezy with that storm out in the Gulf. The interaction between the high pressure, low pressure, and builds up the winds, whether you get a direct hit or not. So we had winds of 20 knots, kept some people off the water, and others gave it a shot. The fishing was great, but the catching wasn't so good. Most of the guys that went out there struggled this weekend. It was, I believe, the full moon, and now that we're out of the weekend and the forecast is much better, NOAA's predicting 5 to 10 mile an hour winds for like the next 3 or 4 days. And then into the weekend, only 10 to 15. So that's a great report for anybody that's looking to head offshore, inshore, or down to Flamingo. We haven't seen, that calm weather here in quite a while. For the guys that are thinking about fishing within the next few days to the weekend, I'm going to start way offshore and talk about the sword fishing. There's been swordfish out there in 1,800 to 2,000 feet of water. Used to be the guys would fish at night for them and target them on the surface, but now they figured out they can sleep all night and get up in the morning and go target them during the daytime. So a lot of these guys are doing that, but during the daytime they feed very close to the bottom. So it's mostly electric reels, but the guys doing it are getting some fish, fishing with rigged large squid. A lot of guys have taken the bellies of dolphin that they've caught, and they rig them up and fish them on the bottom, and with really good success. So there's been some nice swordfish out there, and of course, there's dolphin around. They've been scattered anywhere from 300 feet on the edge of the Gulf Stream all the way out to the swordfish grounds. So for anybody heading out for swordfish or coming back from sword fishing, there's a good chance of you running into some dolphin. And these have been anywhere from small schoolies on up to 25 pounds. So definitely you want to keep an eye out for them. Look for the birds. On the wrecks, anywhere from 400 feet on in to, say, 100, 120. There's been some decent mutton snappers, some over 10 pounds. There's black groupers and a few gag groupers, and, of course, the amberjacks. But there's been a lot of vermilion snappers. They're spawning right now. And the guys using chicken rigs, dropping like right off the edges of the wrecks, are doing pretty good on the vermilions. They're not giants, but, you could possibly get one that's a pound to maybe 3 pounds, and you can easily get a limit in no time on the vermilions right now. Coming in closer to the reef, anywhere from 90 feet out to, say, 300. There's been a few kingfish up to 10 pounds, some bonitas and some blackfin tunas. Did you hear anything more about the sail fishing up the coast?
Yeah, it's funny you ask. I talked to John Earhart. He did not get one today. He saw several. It has been pretty steady. It hasn't been as spectacular as it was before the moon, but that's very common, Alan. Yeah. I'm starting to see a real pattern to that Stuart sailfish bite. Before the full moons in June, July, and August, those fish bunch up, and then they kind of scatter out after the moon peaks.
When I was a young captain, I used to organize these bimini trips this time of the year for the yellowtails and the mutton snappers. And one of the charter boat guys came down to talk to me, and he noticed that we were doing midweek trips, and I was trying to do these trips like away from the full moon, because sometimes you get really strong currents. And he said to me, the week before the full moon is the time to go. And he says it works for everything. And I've seen that throughout those years, ever since he mentioned it to me. Kingfish seem to bite better the week before the full moon, and the snappers as well. So something to keep in mind.
The problem is you can't use it as your only factor. We had that big supermoon back in 2010, I think,
Right.
We could not get to Marsh Harbor before the moon. We ended up landing the day after the moon, so the first day we could fish was 2 days after the full moon, which to me would be the kiss of death, especially on the dark side of the supermoon. It's the only 5 marlin day I've ever had. So, I mean, that shows how smart I am.
There's an exception to every rule.
Go fishing when you can, Cap.
That's right. You can't catch them if you're not out there.
That's exactly right. How about inshore?
In the bay here locally, there's always sea trout to be caught. They're just not as simple to catch. But if anybody that's looking to catch some, all you need is a 1/4 ounce hookup lure, jig head, and a soft plastic, and just make a lot of casts around the flats. There's not a lot of live grass still, and but if you keep working at it, not only will you get some sea trout, but there's quite a few mangrove snappers in the bay right now, so they'll eat those soft plastics as well. And you usually catch the bigger ones on the artificials, the mangroves.
Really?
Oh yeah, definitely. That's something for the inshore side. At night, snook and tarpon have been biting in the inlets, but they're out of season now. But those fish are there in the inlets, and the best fishing has been on the outgoing tide. There has been a few fish on the piers. They're catching some mangrove snappers, snook and tarpon. And when the water was rough, which it was this weekend, a few pompano showed up as well.
It's not common for you guys to have pompano in June, is it?
I don't think it's common for anybody to have them from like Orlando south.
Yeah.
This time of the year. They usually move way up north by now.
Yeah.
But these fish keep trickling through. So
they're welcome to
the
stay.
guys are happy when it happens.
Yeah, right. They're welcome to stay.
Sure.
All right. That's a great report, buddy. We appreciate it very, very much. And please tell me we can talk with you next week.
Look forward to it.
All right. Thank you, Alan.
Take care.
All right, thanks to Alan Sherman for a great Miami report where he says the wind has kept him at the dock, and I'll bet I know where else it's kept some boats at the dock. Captain Nick, did the storm keep you at the dock for a day or two?
Yeah, I wound up canceling a few swordfish trips. We got out a couple of days, earlier in the week, but I did lose the weekend personally.
All right, tell me how the sword fishing's been.
We swordfished last Tuesday, and we got a nice fish, a 242-pounder. So that was good, and we had maybe 10 dolphin and 7 or 8 blackfin tunas, and then a couple amberjack. And then I went on Thursday, which was right when we got all that rain before the wind really started howling, and we swordfished for about half the day, but no bites, and caught about a dozen mahi. So had a little bit of action, but the wind unfortunately kept me on the dock.
Kyle, Nick, it feels to me like the mahi are staying around a little bit longer this year. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, the last couple of years, we've had good fishing in July and August, so we're hoping to have the same. And a lot of boats still fish even with the wind. They didn't go as far, but they was a little bit slow on the mahi. But the expedition, he released a 200-pound blue marlin, had a handful of mahi. The real McCoy released a white marlin, and then he had about 15 or 20 mahi. So there were some good catches today. And most of the boats had, I'd say, anywhere from 6 to 20 fish. Not a couple gaffers, mostly schoolies. But before that, even in the wind when the boats were fishing, a lot of them were doing half days and catching, 20 fish in 300 to 400 feet of water. So that was nice to see.
Let me tell you what, a handful of mahi and a blue marlin, yeah, I'll sign up for that day every day.
Yeah, no, we're always excited to see a blue or a white marlin. We had both, one of each caught today at the marina. So it's always exciting for sure.
Nick, it feels to me, after having spent my life doing this, and it certainly felt this way when we were running in the Bahamas quite a bit to me, like the white marlin numbers might be getting a little better. Do you feel that way too, or have I just maybe gotten a little better at catching them?
I think so, because, I personally don't do a lot of trolling, but I'd say the last 5 or 6 years we've seen more white marlin caught in the summertime. About a boat's trolling for dolphin. They put one big bait out, or one ballyhoo and an islander. And I'd say we've seen more the last 5, 6, 7 years than we did 15 or 20 years ago for sure.
Yep, I agree with that 100%. What's going on inshore down there?
I talked to my brother today. He ran way in the back. He caught 5 tarpon. That was a really good bite. Not big fish. They were small, medium. I heard around town, like the bridges were a little tougher today and yesterday, but he had a few good trips, where he had 4 or 5 just fishing the bridges, and some big fish, over 100 pounds. But I think it was a little tougher today. But also some nice snook back at in the Everglades. Captain Bill Bassett, he had snook up to 12, 14 pounds, which for us is a real nice one. And Charles Hertel had the same thing. He had some snook, mangrove snappers, juvenile tarpon too. So definitely some decent fishing, and hopefully this week's going to be pretty weather and we get all the boats out there almost every day.
It's supposed to be, and I'm sure hoping for it. I promise you that. I'm really glad to hear that the mahi are biting as well as they are down there. You'll be back on a streak of swordfish in no time, I've got a feeling. So please tell me we can check in with you next week and see how it's going.
Yep, give me a call. I'm supposed to fish by the next 6 days, so we'll see what we get into.
You bet. All right, Captain Nick Stancic of the Broad-Minded out of Bud and Mary's, outstanding swordfish fisherman. Now, 10,000 islands. That's a lot of islands. All right. I've got a major question for Steve Dahl. Steve, are you there?
I am. What's going on today?
Well, something been bothering me since I was 8 years old, and I got to ask the question. Have you checked every one of those islands, and is Marianne on any of them?
So that's the point. Everybody's looking for Ginger.
No. I don't care about Ginger. I want Marianne.
Same. I think everybody's looking for Ginger, and I have yet to find Marianne for yourself and myself. So.
That's it. That little checkerboard top tied.
Yeah. That and Catherine Bach from Dukes of Hazzard.
Come on.
Late 70s, early 80s.
Little Daisy Duke now. All right, come on now. We got to clean this up. Tell me how fishing's been in 10,000 islands.
Well, I'll tell you what. Obviously, the 800-pound gorilla in the room right now is in 3 days. The 2020 Gulf, red snapper season opens, and that's the private recreational vessels, okay?
Right.
But, and that's a 45-day season, mind you. So it's going to run June 11th through July 25th for the Gulf, okay? So that's all the recreational season. That's a huge, span. 45 days. Couldn't be happier. I think a lot of guys are pumped up. Now everybody's, gearing up for that. The prelim reports from the first 7 days have been nothing but stellar. I mean, it's been fantastic. It's pretty easy fishing. It's obviously some bottom fishing. The subtle, in our region, it's not so much these super, super big structures on the bottom. It's these subtle ledges that generally hold your bigger snapper and grouper. The thing with the American Reds is that you're going to have to go a little bit far. That's 85 to 110 feet of water, which doesn't sound like much for anybody listening on the East Coast. But if you're in our region, that's a bit of a hike. And it's definitely well worth it, though. There's, obviously these fish only need to be 16 inches total length, but there's fish easily in the lower 20s to mid 20 inch range, double digit pound fish, which is great. And you could probably load the box pretty quick. The nice part is that, that 80, 120 foot, I'll even extend it, is pretty much like Jurassic Park in the Gulf of Mexico, because it's just far enough of a run that, most of the recreation guys aren't going to make that run. The diehard guys are going to do it. The bigger boats are going to certainly do it. So if you can get out there, obviously pick and choose your days. I'm always going to say that, especially in the summertime here. And, understand what the weather's going to be doing throughout the day, not necessarily as you're launching. But if you haven't done that trip before and that run, I would highly suggest you do it. Obviously the area captains would definitely love to take you out there, but there's definitely some seasoned veteran recreational anglers in our area that are always looking for that fifth or sixth person to jump on board. And if you know somebody with a bigger boat, has done that, definitely take the time, maybe do it once with them before you make the run yourself or on your boat. So once you're there, I call it Jurassic Park because everything's in play. African pompano, gag grouper are going to be in the mix. Obviously the American Reds. There's mangrove snapper. You can fire up yellowtails out there. For whatever reason, that if you're not chumming, you generally don't get as many sharks as you do a little bit, closer to shore. So I think that's just always been our sweet spot around here. And, they definitely hold on these little ledges. So, real simple bottom fishing, live pinfish is always paramount for us, especially in the summertime. All the reports, guys have been out every single day and they're loading the box and certainly, catching a release on a whole bunch of other ones.
How long have you been fishing out of 10,000 islands?
I've been coming down here since I was a kid. I mean, first time I was ever down here was 30 years ago. But,
all right.
Professionally, 21.
All right. 20 years ago, did you have red snapper?
We really didn't.
Yeah.
And that's, I think I know where you're going with this. A lot can be debated about how this was managed and or mismanaged, but we have a great population of these out here, and they're bigger fish. we always talk, there are certain fish you would make a slot limit a little bit bigger, make a revision to. I'd like to see the ARs bumped up to 20 inches. You can go and get your 220 pluses in a heartbeat out there right now. So I'm seeing more fish than I ever have. I'm not a true offshore fisherman. I love doing it, though. It's a nice break from the backcountry for me, but
let me tell you my thoughts, and we've got a whole lot more in Northeast Florida. We're almost the epicenter of red snapper. I mean, they literally will come and cover the surface of the water even in 100 feet. But I am absolutely of the belief that if we put in a slot, just like we do with snook, and we go, say, 20 to 24 inches, and we protect all the juveniles and we protect all the spawners, we could take one fish a day for the rest of our lives, and the numbers would continue to increase.
That's amazing.
That's amazing. It scares me to death to think that our whole government is run with the efficiency of the South Atlantic Fisheries Management Council.
No, it really is. And, I don't like to get into the debates of that stuff, but it's hard not to when you have such an inventory of fish out there. I've heard this from everybody. I think it's gotten, certainly better over the years. I just don't think in the 20-some years I've been here, it's ever been really that bad to have these tight regs. We're ecstatic over a simple 45-day season. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. Anything going on inshore down there?
We got the outer bands of Cristobal, the tropical storm. So we got some just real heavy rains the latter part of last week and would have been into the weekend. And our area waters muddied up a little bit in the backcountry. We had some extreme tides to go with that too. So we had obviously on the high side, we had some flood tides. There's a lot of floating debris in the water, and more leaves and branches and kind of goofy stuff like that, but certainly can dirty it up a little bit. And then obviously we actually had some negative tides this week, which is unheard of for June. It's more of our wintertime type of deal. So all that being said, we have some muddy water in the backcountry, but the key is kind of finding that running water and that current, because it obviously flushes it out a little bit better. So stick to the 5 or 6 major passes. When I say that, like Dismal Key Pass, Sandfly, West Pass, all of those, those almost serve as, rivers, if you will, kind of running north to south for us. And all those adjacent bays off of that are starting to clear very well. So just keep that in mind. And the same fish are in play. I think the snook are still sitting on the beaches. You're just getting a little harder to see them as from the sight casting thing. But it's clearing daily right now. We still have some, a little bit stronger southerly winds kind of happening right now. So that's going to probably impede a little bit of the water clarity, but it's improving every day. So we should probably get right back to sight fishing snook here probably in another 3-4 days. So it'll be great.
Perfect. Steve, thank you so much, as always, for a great report, and we'll look forward to talking with you next week, if that's all right.
Absolutely. Can't wait.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Our thanks to Steve Dahl for a great 10,000 Islands report where he has seen no sign of Marianne. But Steve's report, along with all of our great action spotters, are brought to you every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Tournament Master Chum, the best chum on earth. By Nosara Paradise Fishing, your dream vacation. And by Young Boats. You want the finest in flat, spay, and offshore hybrid boats? You need to check out youngboats.com.
You know what Yamaha Outboards love? The genuine formula and consistency of Yamalu marine engine oils.
What?
Outboards are subjected to punishing conditions like high loads, salt, and humidity, a mix that automotive oils can't handle. Yamalu full synthetic and marine performance formulas are certified to protect against friction and corrosion for reliable performance every time. Find Yamalu marine oils at your nearest Yamaha Outboard dealer. Locate them at yamahaaoutboards.com/dealers. Yamaha. Reliability starts here.
Hey, Raj, being consistent is a mark of a quality product. If you've been Florida's #1 chum for over 10 years, there's got to be a reason.
For 10 years, Tournament Master Chum has lived up to its name. That's why more tournament pros insist on Tournament Master than any other chum. It's the only chum with menhaden milk mixed right in. That means it gets the scent out faster and deeper than any other brand of chum. It comes in a grind size for every species from kingfish to catching bait. Your fishing time is way too precious to you second-rate chum. Bring the action to you by insisting on Tournament Master Chum. It's worth every penny.
When you're ready for the finest in custom-made flat spay or inshore offshore hybrids, you are ready to meet the Young family in Inglis, Florida. For over 21 years, the Young family has built custom boats one at a time for every type of fishing. Nothing can sneak up on a flat quite like the Gulf Shore flats boats, and I've never fished a better hybrid than the Young 24s and 27s. Rob Young is a naval architect who takes tremendous pride in each and every build for each and every customer that wants their boat custom built exactly the way they want it. Is it time for you to move up? Are you ready to own the finest boat built? Then you need to visit the Young Boat facility in Inglis, Florida, or check them out online at youngboats.com. Now we're going to swing on up the coast just a little bit into the southwest region of Florida and check in with Snook Stamp Charters and our buddy Greg Stamper. Greg, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Rick. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I would guess the storm might have kept you at the dock for a day or two.
We had a few brushes here and there. We did have some open pockets. We had a couple hours that we could get out and have fun. I did it once with one of my good friends who's also a guide, and we got about 2 hours in and chased a little baby tarpon around. And the day before, I was done before the rain even started, so it all worked out really well for me as far as that goes.
Oh, good deal. Good deal. How's your fishing been?
Fishing has been fantastic. I still can't say enough about how great the snook fishing and the red fishing has been lately. This rain that started a few weeks ago just really charged everything up. It cooled the water off a little bit. All the bait's happy. There's pinfish everywhere and white bait. And it's just brought all the tarpon out of the rivers and the creeks. And it's just good, Rick. It's just really good in the back bays right now. This week will be a little weird because we have some really slow tides. But that's probably going to be okay because we got a lot of people who are trying to go after those little juvenile tarpons. And they kind of like that because they can gulp that air and charge themselves up. And those little bait fish and stuff they're chasing are a little bit slower. So I think we're going to do just fine this week as well when it comes to that stuff. I can tell you the guys that have been out in front and they've been fishing the near shore waters, what we call near shore, anywhere from 0 to 10, 15 miles, absolutely done a fantastic job. Wrecking grouper, as long as they've been out there trolling. The guys who have been just dropping on their spot, seems like they're getting one or two here and there, but it's just not like banging them out. These guys that have been trolling, and I like to use things like those big stretched mans that go down about 25 feet and just plug along. And of course, if you catch a fish, mark it so you start seeing where things are. So what I can tell people, because I had somebody ask me about this earlier this week and they wanted to go troll for them. I said, well, here's the key. If you paid attention to where all those stone crab traps were a few months ago, that's the hard bottom.
That's true.
That's where those fish are. So, I gave him that advice, and he kind of knew some areas, between Sanibel and up by Boca Grande and whatnot. And sure enough, Rick, he listened to what I said. He got himself a big old stretch man. He went out there and he got himself a nice gag grouper. Of course, we're still catching tarpon. They're going to be here for quite some time. As long as it's calm enough, we can get out there and we can go do that. The offshore guys, they did have to worry about the storm. There's no doubt about that. They had to stay at the dock a few days this week. But before everything went down crazy, there were a few guys that got out there to 80, 90, 100 feet, and a couple guys that actually went even further. But the mangrove snappers, the lane snappers, the mutton snappers, and they're getting just annoyed by these things called red snappers. That just seems like they're everywhere from 90 feet out right now. They've been catching all that and having a good time with it. But they haven't got as many big gags as the guys that have been near shore.
Huh. So your favorite for the gags near shore is a stretch 25 or a stretch 30?
I'll do either one, but my favorite is that black and purple.
Black and purple. Okay, I hadn't heard that. I'll be darned. Huh.
Yeah, that's my favorite. And, like I said before, I'll pull those things anywhere from as shallow as 20 feet, 25 feet. Heck, Rick, I've actually pulled those from 12 feet with about 15 feet of line off my reel. That's it. But if you go where those stone crab traps are, remember, stone crabs, they like that hard bottom.
Yep.
That's where they live.
Yep.
And that's what do you think they eat,
That's exactly right. Now, let me ask you, when you're fishing those plugs, are you fishing them on braid or are you fishing them on mono?
You can do either or. Obviously, you'll get down a little bit deeper if you go with the braid.
Right.
But the mono, to me, is better because it gets a little stretch. The nice part about that, though, is when you get that hit, you just don't stop. You just keep going. And that gets them away. It gets them away from wherever they're going to try and dig you into. And once you get them away from that spot that they know that they're going to be safe at, you're going to probably get them. It's pretty much it's almost kind of easy sometimes.
Yep. If you can get them, you're right. And I've always told people, seminars, that kind of stuff, if you're going to catch a blue marlin, get ready to pace yourself through an hour of torture. If you're going to catch a gag grouper, win the first 10 seconds. You win the first 10 seconds, the game's over. He don't got any more tricks.
You're absolutely right, Rick, and that's basically what you're doing when you're pulling those big plugs. You know, if you try and go down there and just drop straight down those spots, you're probably going to get schooled real quick, or you're going to end up catching a smaller one.
That is a fishery I'd give anything for us to have on the East Coast, and we just don't. We can. In my career, I've caught 2 gag groupers on my downrigger, and that's it.
Wow, really?
They just don't do it here. Well, now it's a moot point because now the red snapper coming all the way to the surface and getting our baits. You put a bait 10, 15 feet down over a piece of hard bottom in northeast Florida, the whole bottom is going to turn red. I mean, they're going to come up in mass. But that's okay because we got a 4-day season this year, so we'll probably wipe them into extinction in 4 days.
I'm sure you will, Rick. I hope your boat's big enough because you might sink it.
Yeah, but don't forget now, Greg, I'm only allowed 1 per person for 4 days.
Yeah, I know.
You
know those 4 days, it's going to be blowing like 20 miles an hour coming out of that.
You can count on that, Cap.
Freaking east.
It'll come out every direction at once. It's unbelievable.
It is what it is.
Yep. Hey, Cap, thanks for a great report. We appreciate it as always. Please tell me we can talk with you next week.
Absolutely. Look forward to it, Rick. Tight line.
Now let's check out Ray Markham and find out what's happening in the West Central region. Did Cristobal blow you away?
Who?
Cristobal? Is that his name?
Oh, the crystal ball, yeah. Oh, heck yeah. I'm telling you, it rained like I haven't seen it rain in a long time, at least since the last tropical depression or whatever. But, man, I don't know too many people that got out this last week because of it. We had a lot of wind, a lot of tornadoes, some damage here or there. Just tornadoes popped in and out. I did talk to a few guys that managed to go out on the piers. They said, hell, we're not going out in a boat. We're going to go out on the pier. But they did manage to get a bunch of mangrove snapper, some sheep's head, some flounder, and pompano.
Well, ain't nothing wrong with that. There ain't nothing wrong with that.
I thought it was a little odd getting the pompano because most of the time, whenever I've caught pompano and done it on a fairly regular basis, the water was pretty clean. But we had, 20 plus knot winds out of the south that just roared up the water in Tampa Bay and in the surrounding area and all up and down the coast. We had rip tides out here, and the water was just like mud. But that probably accounts for the fact that sheep's head probably still ate. Not talked to anybody that got offshore. I mean, if they did, I haven't heard back from them.
We may never hear back from them. No, it's been too nasty for that. Well, the good news is a week from now it's going to be better. We can almost guarantee that, right?
Well, you know what? I looked at the weather report this morning and it said there was 50% chance of rain. Now, here it is 6 o'clock at night. We've got another little less than 6 hours to go before the day is over, and I've yet to see any rain. Of course, that means that, I might be on that 50% that might not get it today. So, I don't know. I still may go fish yet.
It'll be my first day without rain in a long time. Ray, as always, we appreciate it. I'm counting on the water clearing up for you for next week. So, please tell me we can check in with you then.
You bet.
All right. Thank you, Ray.
We'll catch you later, Rick.
I hope our good buddy in Homosassa didn't float away. William, are you with us?
Yep, I'm right here in downtown, over the dock, Homosassa River, McCrae's Bait House, Swamp Central.
Do you have any water in the streets of Homosassa?
You know what? We got a little bit, and if anybody needs some, we'd be glad to give it to you. It's we got this big after the full moon tide pumping up the river right now, and it's pretty deep. I was out fishing this afternoon, and fish had a lot of places to be. So, wind's supposed to die down and everything. So maybe by late week and the weekend, we're going to get back to some normal good fishing.
I tell you what, I have experienced, William, after a kind of a traumatic weather event like that was, I've had some excellent fishing when it settled back down a little bit. Have you found that?
Yeah, absolutely. I know it kind of displaces stuff a little bit. And, what I believe in our area here on the Big Bend, you got a lot of backcountries in different areas and mangroves. And when those, they get flood tides like that, it pushes them up into the interior of those keys, your redfish and your snook, and it's hard to get at them. And funny, we did catch a nice trout way back up inside, probably 2.5 miles as the crow flies from the Gulf, which is, pretty unusual for this time of year because the water temperature. So, that big tide pushes stuff around, but I believe as soon as it gets back, it pushes some stuff to some, some fish weren't in some areas, will be in those areas. And then other spots like out there grouper fishing, I think it makes them hole up and get on the structure because all those severe tides and everything out there. So as soon as the weather's right, it ought to be some good grouper digging.
William, when I was a kid working on a party boat, the captain always told me that after we get a big surge like that, after the bottom gets stirred up, that you'll find your snapper and grouper near your biggest structure. Have you found that to be true?
I believe so. That's the same over here, even though, we can start catching legal gags sometimes in 8 foot of water. And you got rocks in 8 foot of water that take off your lower unit here. So those big structure like that, it makes a lot of sense those fish are going to get in there because they can take a break. If not, when you got a big surge like we had with Cristal pushing through the Gulf and heavy seas, they got to take a break. And I just believe that's the truth. You go right there to the biggest structure. That's where the fish will be.
Woo! When's the ocean supposed to lay down for you?
I believe tomorrow it's going to start, and later in the week it's going to get down to those 3 to 5 knot winds with an afternoon sea breeze. So that's going to be some good fishing here later in the week. They're looking at just normal afternoon thunderstorms and that sort of thing, to keep an eye out on the weather for that. But it's always June. We get our first storm, and it's just become the norm for us.
I tell you what, William Tony, there's one thing you need to know about me. I am a courageous captain. It never gets too calm to scare me.
If I get too far offshore where I can't see land, I start getting scared. I always tell folks, in my boat, if my boat sinks, you're going to have to get out and walk home.
That's exactly right. Now, I might be in some trouble there because I can't go very deep. All right, Cap. As always, we sure do appreciate it. We'll look forward to talking with you next week.
I'll be here, bud.
Thank you, William. Gosh, I hope everything's okay in Mexico Beach. Captain Kevin, are you with us?
Captain Rick, I'm with you. Yeah, things are okay here in Mexico Beach. We got a lot of wave action, and we got some sand built up in our canal here, so it'll take them a day or two to get it cleaned out. So we'll be ready for the recreational opener on the 11th. We're no worse for the wear with the storm.
So tell me a fish story. How's your fishing going?
Oh, red snapper fishing has been phenomenal. We had 4 trips last week. We got boat limits every day. One day we had for an 8 gags, which was a great day. We broke 20 pounds 5 times this past week, single fish. And so that was exciting. We broke 25 pounds twice. So makes it really good. If you've never had an opportunity to catch big red snapper, this is the area to do it in for sure.
I tell you, I believe that was a 27-1 you sent me the other day, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. 27-1 and 25-8 on the same trip opening day.
Golly, that's a pair of gorillas right there now. There's no doubt. Kevin, what's your favorite bait for those big fish?
Live bait of any sort. We get hardtails. Believe it or not, those big red snapper will eat a big hardtail. Cigar minnows, greenies, anything we can put down there live. We call them sand pert. Some people call them squirrel fish. We'll put those down. Anything live, they just cannot resist.
Mm-hmm.
And true statement, bigger bait doesn't always get the bigger fish because the biggest grouper the other day come on the smallest sand perch we had.
I'll be darned. I'll be darned. How big are your grouper running?
They're running in the 8 to 15 pound range.
That's the best eating size there is.
Yeah, we haven't got any beast. And I always tell guys when they're here red snapper fishing, I said, if you want the best on your plate, that legal to 22-inch red snapper is going to be the best tasting fish you can put on your plate.
That's exactly right. Captain Kevin, you and I have talked about it. If we put in a 20 to 24-inch slot, we could fish red snapper, 1 per person for every day the rest of our lives, and the numbers would keep on getting better.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. We're not putting in a dent. We're not putting a dent in the population of red snapper. It just amazes me day in and day out. I'm very conservative about where I go. I don't overfish spots. In fact, the other day, those 2 big fish that we took 1 fish out of the spot, and it was places I found when I was moving around earlier in the spring that I went back to try. So we protect our fish.
You said a mouthful there, and I wish more people would pay attention to that because if you will develop spots, if you will have spots that you find on your own, and you go to visit them and you take one fish, you take two fish, and then you're gone, and they never know you were there, Cap, you're going to catch fish every day you go.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a firm believer in that because it doesn't take long to fish out big fish, especially when they're aggressive, and I try to be, like I said, I try to be a good steward of the resource as much as I can.
Not only that, but I think pressure puts them on the move too. If you've got 10 snapper down there, 10, 20-pound snapper down there, and you take 5, those other 5 are going to leave. They didn't get that big by being stupid. If you take one, you can come back in a month and take another one.
Oh, I agree with you. And another thing I have found is if your anglers on the boat miss about 2 or 3 of them, they stop.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I always tell guys, you be ready when that bait hits the bottom, because if you miss a couple, we might as well leave.
I think it's absolutely a true statement, and it's great advice. Anything going on inshore down there?
There's still some redfish, and there's still some trout being taken, a few flounder as well. A lot of the focus is on the offshore world right now, so most of the inshore fishing is being done on the beach.
Got it. Hey, Kevin, thanks so much. Please tell me we can talk to you next week.
I'll be here next week, and we've got a full week of trips this week, so we should have some great reports.
When's your next open day?
June the 18th, I think it is. I think we've got a 3-day break in there somewhere. I got to keep one day for a maintenance day, and then we're rolling. I think we had 20 days of the 30 days of June booked.
Thank the Lord, you're rolling again. All right, we appreciate it, Kevin. Thank you, buddy.
All right, Captain Rick. Talk to you soon.
Take care. Let's swing all the way out. We can't get out of Florida without going through the Panhandle, and that's where Captain Tyler Massey is holding court, and I'll bet he is catching red snapper. Tyler, are you with us?
Yep, I'm here, Rick.
I sure hope the storm didn't beat you guys up too bad.
No, we're doing okay over here. I had a little bit of storm surge and some rain and stuff, but we're doing okay.
Good. Then let's talk about something a lot more fun. Let's talk red snapper fishing.
Yeah, we got our recreational seasons opening up on the 11th here, so all the guys will be like a derby out there. Everyone's going to be going this weekend, and there's plenty of them to catch. So I don't see that being an issue. People fish a lot of public stuff. We got a lot of public reefs in our area, public wrecks and rubble piles, all that kind of stuff. And there's plenty of fish and all that kind of stuff. When you're fishing this kind of stuff around a lot of people, I like to say to downsize your tackle a little bit. Fish spinning rods, and we call it a knocker rig, where the weight sits right above the hook.
Right.
And you'll pick up some nicer fish, and you'll get some that may be a little bit weary to the big lead sinker down there on the bottom.
So what's the preferred bait for your knocker rig?
Any kind of bait, really. Dead baits or live baits work great. You could put a little pinfish on there, cigar minnows, sardines. Any of those live or dead will work fine.
All right. How deep water are the snapper in?
We're catching them anywhere from about 45 up to 250 foot. Really, it seems like over the last few years the snapper just kind of keep creeping out further and further to the spots where we normally catch some of our groupers, our scamp, and that kind of stuff. Some of the rocks out there are loaded with snapper too. So, anything from 40 foot all the way out there to the deep water.
Good friend of mine's a commercial fisherman, Tyler, and the current stopped along the edge of the Gulf Stream the other day, and he was all excited. He quick ran out to 350 feet to harvest some snowy grouper that he knew where they were. And guess who? All the way down on the bottom in 350 feet, he got covered up with red snapper.
Yep, that happens to us quite often. It seems like more now than it used to. But yeah, they're out there. They're hungry, and they're waiting for you to feed them.
That's exactly right. Has anything gone on inshore, or has the weather had that all messed up?
Now, weather's had it messed up for the last few days, and I imagine after the storm we had a lot of extra water in our bay. I bet it's going to be tough for the inshore guys over the next week or so. We got to get our tide back to normal. We had higher tide than normal with the full moon, plus maybe 1.5 or 2 foot of storm surge on top. So it's going to be wacky for a couple of days. But once the tide levels back out, people I imagine start catching speckled trout, redfish, a few flounder, and some mangrove snappers again. Just all throughout the bay using, live shrimp are probably the best bet for all that kind of stuff.
Gosh, Tyler, I'll bet you, in fact, I'm almost positive of this. Doesn't it seem uncanny how so many of those storms come ashore at full moon high tides?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It does seem like that, though. I've noticed it a few times over the years. Where we already have a normal high tide or higher tide than normal, and then we get a little extra on top of it. So that doesn't help nothing, and it kind of screws up the whole flow of the bay, I think.
It doesn't help a bit, but give us a week or so, and it'll all be flushed out. Mother Nature will have it squared away, and you guys will be back to catching fish. Cap, we appreciate it as always. Please tell me we can talk with you next week.
Yep, I'll be here.
Thanks, Tyler.
See you, Rick.
And you know what? That wraps up our trip around Florida tonight. My goodness, we got some interesting reports tonight. First off, I thought the storm would be much more of a factor than it has been. Tyler said they were able to fish right up until the storm. And I also was surprised by so many guys talking about pompano. What are we doing with pompano in June? That's got to be a result of a population boom of pompano that we've had since we took the nets out of the water, and it seems to get a little bit better every year. They come earlier and stay longer. Captain John Earhart over in Stewart said that the sailfish kind of took a day off today. They've been very good for the last week or so, and everybody seems pleased with the mahi reports from the last week. Jim Ross said there were plenty of them off of East Central Florida. Captain David Voorhees said that they've been doing very well up in Northeast Florida. I know I talked with Captain Robert Johnson up there, and they had an excellent day on mahi on Sunday. Alan Sherman told us the same thing down in Miami, a surprising number of good fish. We're sure glad to see it. And Captain Nick Stanczyk informed us that the days are booked up again. The people have come back to the Keys, and they are catching tarpon down there. His brother had 5 today, and if you've ever done 5 tarpon in one day, you know that's a lot of work. So all in all, things were good this week. Now that the storm's behind us, we got a week of good weather. I can't wait till next week when we post a little more normal report. We really appreciate you tuning in. We'd love it if you tuned in every week and if you subscribe to our podcast. Florida Sportsman Action Spotter is brought to you this week and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Tournament Master Chum, the best chum on earth. By Nosara Paradise Rentals. FishingNosara.com is where you need to go to find out about your dream vacation, and by Young Boats. You want the finest in flat spay and offshore hybrid boats? Check out youngboats.com. I'm Captain Rick Riles, and until next week, we'll see you on the rip.